And if some Western bastard arrogantly tells us something, I will remind them of the simple names of German cities that were wiped off the face of the earth during the Second World War by Allied aviation. It's not for these Western to lecture us on morality or tell us what to do and how to do it.
Once again, Russia is humiliating Europe and ruling out its demands for peace negotiations over Ukraine. Of course, Russia's conditions are as maximalist as ever: grab as much territory as possible, impose their dictatorship everywhere, and basically ensure that Ukraine, as an independent state, has no right to exist. And the best part, Solovyov, Lavrov, and their merry band of Kremlin minions don't even bother hiding it. New week, new Russian nonsense. I'm Sofia, and this is Spin Snipers, where we tear apart Kremlin drama and serve up the brutal facts fast. And once again, Russia is chirping out the classic mantra about peace talks, claiming that they are not the ones derailing a peace deal. Of course, following the usual script, they blame Europe. Classic Russia.
Europe is currently financing Ukraine, and it is ready to continue doing so. In this sense, without securing European consent to this formula, there will naturally be no peace process. Ukraine will simply continue the military conflict, and Europe will force it to do so. They have the resources, and Europe will allocate the funds for this.
So basically, Russia is saying we're totally ready for peace, but only on our terms. Because, of course, who cares if there are actual three-way talks are going on between the US, Ukraine and Russia? Nope. They are chilling in their little fantasy bubble, waving around their so-called 28-point peace plan like it's a magic wand. And let's not forget, the very same plan was literally written by Russian negotiators themselves and handed off to Steve Witkoff. Yeah, because nothing screams credibility like reviewing your own homework and then acting shocked when everyone else refuses to sign it. Classic.
What is going on? There were 28 points. Trump's demands. You know, we often talk about the spirit of Anchorage. Even Kaja Kallas mentioned Alaska, not Anchorage. We have never officially said what exactly happened in Anchorage or what constitutes this spirit. Nevertheless, in my understanding, these 28 points are close to the agreements that Putin had with Trump. Lavrov has said this.
There was something to announce, Lavrov said.
What happened next? Then the Europeans stepped in, already in the previous round, and reworked the 28 points into 20. Everything that was problematic or essential for us was simply thrown out. They convinced Trump that nothing serious was happening. Lavrov, by the way, said that we never received this 20-point plan. From this, I conclude that the 28-point plan was indeed discussed and was not some kind of surprise for us. In short, the 20 points were not even presented to us. 8 key points were discarded, and now they are also trying to explain to Trump that things should be added that are completely unacceptable for Russia.
And let's be real, Russia basically wrote a peace plan stuffed with perks for themselves. Even now, they are demanding the impossible, a total withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the Donbas. Sure, just hand it over without a fight. Easy, right? Here is the kicker. Russia won't be able to occupy the territory anytime soon anyway. So basically, their peace plan is just a surrender on a plate plan. Meanwhile, at the front lines, things are not exactly going their way. Ukrainian cities are still being targeted, sure, but the moment Ukrainian strikes back, cue the meltdown in Russian studios. Seriously, maybe it's time for Russia to try something new? Like, I don't know, actually agreeing to a realistic and forcible ceasefire instead of fantasizing about a one-side victory?
And in Ukraine, everything is fine. People are dying everywhere, including at territorial recruitment centers. Soon, there will be humanitarian catastrophes in freezing cities. And what matters is that they don't care about this at all. If Kyiv is a city with massive military infrastructure, if Kharkiv is a city with massive defensive military infrastructure, then in Belgorod, there is nothing. In Belgorod, there is nothing related to the war, but they can reach it, so they are destroying Belgorod. Here is MP Oleksiy Honcharenko in the Verkhovna Rada saying that the territorial conscription centers are their sentence. No, we are your sentence. We must be ruthless, destroy and raze everything, for Belgorod, for Kursk, for Bryansk. Ruthlessly wipe them out.
So these merciless rants on Russian TV, maybe this is what they call Russia's famous desire for peace. Honestly, I don't even want to comment on that. But you know what? With all this unchecked anger, this obsession with destroying Ukraine and their own failures in negotiations, the Russians cynically pointing fingers at Europe. Apparently, it's unacceptable that the EU sets any conditions for Russia. Of course, Russia prefers to be the one handing out conditions to everyone else.
Here's basically what Kallis is saying. Listen, why are we discussing the size of Ukraine's armed forces? That's not a problem at all. Let's discuss Russia's armed forces, since they attacked Ukraine, and tomorrow they might attack us. Of course, for us, this is absolutely unacceptable. We're not even going to discuss it. That's obvious. But for derailing the negotiations, this is quite a logical move. Let's put forward this demand. And what will the US do? Pressure the Europeans even harder? Big question. Therefore, from the perspective of sabotaging the negotiation process, Europe is still entrenched in this position, and it's still quite fortified. And in this sense, they are not planning to leave it.
Meanwhile, on Russian TV, it's all criticism and speculations, but in the Kremlin, they're speaking with official authority. The goals of the war have not changed. So maybe, just maybe, it's not Europe that's derailing negotiations. But hey, don't take my word for it. Think about it. And then there is Lavrov, who somehow managed to top it all with yet another round of absolute nonsense.
When speaking about Greenland, one cannot ignore the fact that, as in many other cases, the so-called champions of peace and order, based on Western rules, apply outright double standards. The right of Greenlanders to self-determination is recognized, while the right of the peoples of Crimea, Donbass, and Novorossiya to determine their fate in unity with Russia continues to be denied. We categorically disagree with such perverted, blatantly biased logic. We will defend the truth and the law in all contacts with international partners. We will provide political and diplomatic support in achieving all the goals and objectives of the special military operation.
It's so convenient to twist facts and bring up the so-called referendums in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine under the barrel of a gun, of course. Just roll in with the war, grab the land, force people to vote, and then who even voted? These are the same kinds of elections where dictator Putin always scores nearly 100%? Totally legitimate, right? Back to Europe. Russian propaganda is no longer holding back on insults. Their latest target, French President Emmanuel Macron. Yes, the same guy who is trying to maintain contacts with Russia. And now, of course, he is being attacked in the media, smeared and used as an example for yet another wave of Russian moralizing.
Emmanuel Macron, who decided that he's ready to restore dialogue. How can one restore dialogue when, first of all, a person who doesn't understand the meaning of the word dialogue always has to do everything publicly, with cameras around so they can be shown? About what? And even more so now, when it turned out that on Epstein's island, Epstein's records were preserved where they discuss... All right, I'll read it. Epstein mentioned, in correspondence, Macron's boyfriend. They showed me Macron's boyfriend. Hypocrisy, Epstein wrote to one of his interlocutors. Surprise, because the photo showed a soldier. This gives new meaning to the phrase, "I've got your back." Or remember, the French are behind you, Epstein joked in reply. Later in the conversation, he said that he was shown other spicy details. Well, I understand that the story of the Macedonian phalanx haunts Macron, but those were battle-hardened.
Oh, and here is another classic. Epstein files have suddenly become the Kremlin's favorite toy. Sure, there is zero evidence, zero facts, but who needs those when you can smear your political opponents and dunk them in a mud for cameras? Meanwhile, talks about resuming diplomatic relations between Russia and Europe, apparently Moscow could not care less, because why bother relations with Russia and Europe? Apparently, Moscow could not care less, because why bother with actual diplomacy when you can stir scandals, spread rumors, and keep everyone guessing?
Our position is simple. In our eyes, Europe has completely discredited itself. All mechanisms of cooperation with the European Union, the 4 common spaces, 20 sectoral dialogues, the security dialogue, summits held twice a year, were all thrown into the fire as soon as the special military operation began. Europe unconditionally stood in defense of the Nazi regime, having, along with the administration of Joe Biden, previously played its role in its nurturing. What about the arrest of our gold and foreign exchange reserves? They say that, according to the rules, they only use the interest that exceeds what is due to us from the investment of these funds. But whatever interest they use, it grows from our money, which we currently cannot access. Without a doubt, we will not leave this situation as it is. From our side, there will be no hints or initiatives. If they come to their senses, let them reach out. We will consider such appeals based on our interests.
Meanwhile, Russian TV is once again throwing a moral panic party and, of course, blaming European countries for all sorts of imaginary threats. Oh, and nuclear weapons came up too. They're terrified other countries might get them. Except here is the thing. Unlike Russia, these countries are not waving nukes at a peaceful neighbor. Nope. They are not dropping bombs, they are not threatening civilians, and they are certainly not using it as a propaganda scare tactic. But hey, why let facts get in the way of a good old panic story, right?
It's truly a horror, a ringing vulgarity in everything that's happening, especially considering that in the hands of these perverts and scoundrels is nuclear weapons. France itself has a certain nuclear arsenal. Germany, too, basically just minutes away from obtaining its own nuclear weapons. The technology allows it. Japan as well. This is a race that has undeniably already begun. So there's no point in speaking in the past tense. This is today, all against the backdrop of a phenomenal moral decline.
And with same-sex marriages, you know, it's 2 steps away from pedophilia. This has all been said. They've all said it. But nichts. Whatever they said about it. We kind of tried to explain to them, but no, they wouldn't listen.
And here we go again. Highly moral Russia is singing the same old song about values. Once more, they're spinning tall tales about same-sex marriage, warning the world that somehow consistent adults are a threat to society. Except it's not true. And honestly, what's so terrible about same-sex marriage anyway? Nothing. The real kicker, Russia's own entertainment industry, political elite and elite circles are full of LGBTQ people, but that's a secret. Instead, they feed the population this fairy tale about morality, this supposed moral high ground. And here is the target irony. The same country that lectures everyone about family values, morality and the dangers of same-sex marriage is the one dropping bombs on Ukrainian cities, killing thousands of civilians, children, women, pensioners, while lecturing the world about virtue. Moral authority, more like propaganda theater with a body count. That's it for today. While the Russian propaganda machine keeps running, we'll keep exposing their lies. I'm Sofia, and this was Spin Snipers. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and don't fall for their spin.